what a fine session that was for England. Just what the doctor would have ordered, just what Joe Root would have wanted in his 100th Test match. They've gone from 67 for 2 at lunch to 140 for 2. So no wickets in that session and 73 runs. They look pretty comfortable, did Joe Root and Dom Sibley. Should make for a wonderful chat on our tea time show on ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and Realme X7 5G Pro. Ian Bell is here, so too is Gautam Gambhir. I'll go to Belly first up. This was just the sort of session England would have wanted after lunch, Belly.
Absolutely. It was a brilliant session. I actually thought India started off really well with the ball. The ball was reversing. Ashwin was bowling nicely. And again, they had to start again, the England batsmen. And they got through a really tough period, some real skillful bowling. And then sort of cashed in as it went on. I thought the way Dom Sibley and Joe Root as well, when the young spinners, more inexperienced spinners came on after that initial burst, they just played a few more shots, put a little bit more pressure back onto India. And I was a little bit surprised, if I'm honest with you. I thought Ishant Sharma might have had 1 or 2 more overs up front. Yeah. The ball was just doing enough. He found the outside edge that didn't carry, a big LBW shout. It felt like things were happening, and the ball was obviously a little bit harder then. But it just felt England got through a really tough battle there. And to go in at tea with not losing a wicket was brilliant. I'm over the moon. I'm really pleased for Dom Sibley. That's what England needs, somebody that can bat periods of time. But he did show that he had a few more options up his sleeve, just to put a bit more pressure back onto some of the Indian spinners.
Yeah, he's looked good, hasn't he, Gautam? Dom Sibley. There were those moments that Ian Bell rightly points out on, but outside of those few moments of excitement that Ishant Sharma calls, they seem quite comfortable, relatively comfortable, especially against the likes of Shahbaz Nadeem and Washington Sundar.
Oh, very good. Especially Dom Sibley. You expect Joe Root to bat the way he batted, but Dom Sibley was absolutely brilliant. First tour to India, first Test match, and you start off like that. Obviously, he's going to take a lot of confidence into the series. Plus, how just Billy mentioned that he batting time in India is very important as well. Because if you can actually bat 5 or 6 sessions, then probably you're in the game much more, because wicket starts turning, wicket starts keeping up and down. So that's very important. Sometimes people say that you got to score runs at a certain rate. Not important. If you bat time, especially you've got a batter like Dom Sibley, it can actually help the team from the larger point of view, because batting 5 sessions is very important, not only from the runs point of view, but from the conditions point of view as well.
Now, we had this detailed conversation through the Australia series of batsmen like a Pujara or a Vihari that bat a lot of time, but they don't put a bowler off if they don't necessarily score off him. It's a fine balance to strike. They do a certain role, Belly. I'll come to you as well and Gautam too. We know that Dom likes to bat time, and then Dom Sibley likes to bat time, but there always comes that phase when suddenly you need to start playing some shots, just getting the runs going. We did see that against the spin. What do you make of just the pace at which Sibley's going about his business?
Yeah, look, I think there's no doubt England have got the best part of this conditions at the moment. Winning the toss was a massive bonus. But they are doing, they're laying the platform here. We have an exciting stroke playing middle order with Butler, Stokes, Pope, and those guys can come in and play with freedom if someone does the hard work up front. Dom Sibley as well has been a little bit criticised at home sometimes for being a bit too slow. But again, I reckon if you ask that middle order, you ask Joe Root, does he want him in his side, doing what he's doing, laying the platform, more often than not, I think they would take that. Again, he'll get more, I suppose, credit and, praise from his teammates, not necessarily from people on the outside who are saying it's a bit slow, but I know his teammates will respect everything he's doing right now, laying a platform. If he does that more often than not for England, they're going to be in test matches, whether it's at home or abroad.
Yeah, this is that sort of unfair criticism batsmen in test cricket tend to get on strike rates, Gautam.
Oh, I like players like these. I love players like these. And these are the players which actually set the platform. And more importantly, these are the players because of which players like Joe Root, Ben Stokes, Josh Butler can play the way they can, or they do. That's very important. Sometimes, yes, this is a very overrated discussion when you talk about strike rates. But you look at in last couple of years, there has been results in every test match. It's not like because of these players, there are many more draws. Not at all. And more importantly, I'm sure it doesn't happen in Australia that much or in South Africa, but more importantly in English condition or in Indian condition, if you actually can bat time, it helps you actually, the conditions change very quickly. So you want players who can actually play time. And at the same time, when you talk about from the Pujara point of view or from Dom Sibley's point of view, Pujara bat the way he bats. That's the reason why Rishabh Pant, Virat Kohli, Ajinkya Rahane and all those guys can bat freely. So there's always room for these kind of players, and you actually have to love it, because in today's day and age where there's so much of T20 cricket, so much of one-day cricket where you see a mid-on up and you go straight away over the top, you want players who can actually defend well. And that's a great contest. That's a great art as well. Defending or playing 200, 250, 300 balls is an art. And not many players can do that in world cricket, especially on a turning track or where the ball is seaming. So I think when people talk about, yeah, he's very slow, he's very boring, but this is what Test cricket is all about. And you want young cricketers to learn that art as well, not only just going in the nets and just hitting the ball from ball one. That's not the greatest of art, and that is probably the easiest thing to do. Playing 200, 250 balls are probably the toughest to do in any form of cricket.
Yeah, he seems to also have come off a little bit of criticism in Sri Lanka. Dom Sibley, Belly on the openers getting out cheaply to spin. Of course, Kevin Peterson had a few things to say on how they're going about it. He's played 11 of his 14 tests in England, New Zealand, and South Africa. He comes to the subcontinent, knocks up a 50 in that second innings, and today looked quite comfortable against the spin. What does that tell you about him?
Look, I think the last innings in Sri Lanka was massively important for him. Like to get a 50 and get across the line to win a test match gave him so much confidence. One thing I know with Dominic as well, as a player, I think he's a fast learner. And that's what you look for when young players come into national cricket. Do they learn fast or are they still making the same mistakes? I think he's somebody that does learn fast. You know, he started off, made a few adjustments in his technique against the seaming ball. And now he's done the same against spin. I do believe technically he sets up quite nice for the ball turning in. He's a strong player through straight. And through the leg side. There's still some work to be done against the left arm spin, but it looks so much better today than it did do maybe in those first few innings in Sri Lanka. And he has made improvements. And that's the thing we talk about, not just the great players who have energy to keep improving as their career goes on, but young players. Do they learn fast? Because international cricket is a tough environment. You're always asked questions. And for me, it's one of his strengths is his character and his belief that, again, in the basics, batting periods of time, trusting his defence, but learning on the job, and I think he's doing that really well.
Could India's bowlers have done more in this session, Gautam?
Don't know. Probably a little bit of lack of experience as well from the two spinners, Washington Sundar and Shahbaz Nadeem. Again, we'll keep going back to the same stuff again and again. Would you want 3-finger spinners or would you wanted to have another wrist spinner, especially when things are becoming too flat and it's becoming too easy for two-set batters? Would you wanted someone who could actually take the ball away and can make things happen? Because at the moment, apart from Ashwin, Ishant and Bumrah to a certain extent, these three guys, I don't see Shahbaz Nadeem making too much of an impact, or Washington Sundar as well. So again, but probably a little bit more different lines and probably more attacking fields as well against Dom Sibley. I know he defends really well, but then you got to invite him to play some more expansive shots, rather not have a shot extra cover, let him drive off the left-arm spinner. Probably he might just nick one. But if you have those defensive mindset, because it's not going to bother him one bit if you have defensive fields, because he's really good on his defense. So you probably have to invite him more to probably play some more attacking shots, which is a little unnatural to him as well. Sometimes against a batter like Dom Sibley, if you don't have a shot extra cover and you leave that gap open against a left-arm spinner, you've got a gully and a slip. I know it's not spinning that much, but just to invite someone, you might just ask him to play that big shot and might just get nicked. So something, you got to make things happen. You can't just wait for things to happen. So that is where I think the art of captaincy is very important in 5-day cricket. 1-day cricket and T20 is very different. 5-day cricket, you got to be more innovative and probably more ahead of the game as well.
Yeah, they've got 3 spinners, and we keep talking about India's going to be a tough challenge. But like Gautam points out, Delhi, that 2 of these spinners have played 1 test each. So there is a lack of test match experience here. And what about the likes of, say, Shahbaz Nadeem, for instance? There's this theory we have of England against orthodox left-arm spin, where it's a vulnerability. But what about Shahbaz Nadeem? Tends to make it look like England are quite comfortable playing him.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about probably the difference. He's a slightly smaller left-arm spinner, so the ball has to go up and down. Whereas in Sri Lanka, and again with someone like Patel, taller bowler bowling into the pitch, even a Jadeja bowling into the pitch, those kind of bowlers have caused England a bit more trouble. But this is a little bit different. And I agree a little bit. I think that the importance of nearly having a balanced attack, so not having a wrist spinner in the side and having 2 off spinners. Sometimes, again, as soon as you get through Ashwin, it's still the same for England, as you said, with the lack of experience. And actually, as we go through, and I think the advantage of having a wrist spinner, whether it's a China or an orthodox leg spinner, is the tail enders really struggle with wrist spin and blowing away that sort of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And not just relying on, say, Ashwin and Bumrah. I think that where maybe when you look at the selection now, it's been more on the cautious having the extra batting spinner than maybe the attacking wrist spinner that could maybe go and make things happen, like you said, on a flat pitch on day one, or when the tail enders come out and just knocking them over and then get India out there batting.
Yeah, I know.
And just wanted to add one more thing. When you talk about Shahbaz Nadeem, speeds in India are very important. And that is where you get the natural variation of the surface. That's why if you see Jadeja or Akshar Patel, because they bowl at a certain pace, some balls keep straight, go straight, and some balls just end up spinning. But with Shahbaz Nadeem, you don't get that natural variation of the surface because obviously he's small, he bowls at a much slower pace as well. So that is why you can't compare someone like Shahbaz Nadeem to Jadeja or Akshar Patel because he's shorter, so he has to flight the ball up and he has to beat the batsman in the air. But Jadeja doesn't do that. Akshar Patel doesn't do that. That's why they get natural variation, and that's why those two guys, well, not Akshar, Jadeja is very very successful in Test cricket alongside Ashwin.
I know we're repeating ourselves, but again, with every session, we're getting more information to make this assessment. And Gautam was of the opinion that Kuldeep Yadav should have played this test. Now, we'll never know if Akshar Patel was fit. Would they still play the three spinners and would then have Kuldeep found a place? But what do you make of this thing of having to have a little more batting in your team? You have Washington Sundar and Ashwin. And then, maybe a Washington Sundar is competing with a Kuldeep Yadav, or would it have been a Shahbaz Nadeem competing with Kuldeep Yadav? If he had to find a place in this team, who would he have come in for, Gautam?
Washington Sundar.
Right.
The reason why I'll tell you one thing.
Is his batting really something to look at then? Do
See, again, I'll tell you one thing. Why India could win the test series in Australia, because India was brave after the first test match. India, after getting bundled out for 36, any team, probably a lot of teams would have actually gone with 7 batters, more cushion, and then 4 bowlers. But India went the other way. They batted Jadeja at number 7 and Ashwin at number 8. And then they had 3 fast bowlers. I'm sure Ashwin in our conditions in Chennai is a pretty good batter at number 7. And then if you can, and more importantly, it's not about runs for India. It's about taking 20 wickets. With the kind of spin England has, I'm not going to take anything away from them. If India can actually get them out for 300, 320 with the kind of options they should have had in the playing 11, India would have been better suited. If England goes to 450 or 400 with 7 or 8 batters in your lineup, this is heading nowhere. So I think for me, it is the bowler that will win you games. Bowlers who can take 20 wickets, that is more important. So I would have definitely gone with Ashwin at number 7, Kuldeep Yadav at number 8, and then probably see where it goes after that. Or if you want to play an orthodox left-arm spinner, fair enough, you can go that way. If you want another spinner with Washington Sundar, but I would have definitely played Kuldeep either for Washington Sundar or for Shahbaz Nadeem.
All right. If you were to put it the other way, we know this record of, like I said, England against left-arm orthodox spin. But if you've seen the kind of spinner that Shahbaz Nadeem is, Belly, and you know what Kuldeep Yadav has to offer, who would you have rather seen in the opposition if you were an England batsman? Or rather, who would you have rather avoided? Would you rather be happier avoiding Kuldeep or happier avoiding Nadeem?
It's a good question. I think that's what we've got to remember is England have had the best of the conditions so far. This is day 1. Yeah. When we get to day 3, things may look a lot different in the second innings. This way, it's so important. England now, they have to win this next session. They've been brilliant this one. To answer that question, I think probably again, there's been a lot of talk about normal wrist finger spin. But I think again, any English player wrist spin out the back on good flat wickets, I think is particularly hard for English players. So I probably would have gone with wrist spin. I think it's a more aggressive statement from India to go that way. I think again, the lineup may be, like you said, a bit more cautious, extra batting all-rounder spinner, and maybe rather, as Gautam just said there, how are you going to get 20 wickets? How are you going to go out there and back your top 6, which is a fantastic top 6 to score the bulk of the runs, and then pick your best bowling attack? As you said, with Ashwin with the bat, he could easily do a job, I think, at number 7 in this team, in this series, in these conditions.
All right.
And plus, Ronak, you need to have a bowling attack for all conditions. You can't have a bowling attack for a condition, okay, if we win the toss, we bat first, we've got a bowling attack, actually, which can actually get us wickets on day 2, day 3. But the reason why I'm saying about Kuldeep, or we keep mentioning about Kuldeep Yadav, is that he's a day 1 bowler as well. So you got to have bowlers who can actually make things happen on day 1, because toss is something which is not in your hand. So you pick a bowling lineup, which is for all conditions, which is for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And India, unfortunately, has a bowling attack, which is probably more suited for day 3, day 4, or day 5. Once it starts spinning, gripping, and bouncing, then finger spinners would come into the play, not probably on day 1.
I think that's a nice thing as well.
Yes,
I was going to say, it's because having the wrist spinner as well, with the amount of overs Ashwin's going to bowl, you're looking for someone to make an impact. And I think the wrist spinner is more likely to come in, like they're using Bumrah and Ishant in short, sharp bursts. You can use the wrist spinner as an attacking option and then pull him out when you need to, and then go straight back to Ashwin.
Now let's look ahead to this final session of play. Gautam, you said that India need to get creative. They need to try and make something happen. So what's the chit chat now? What's the line of attack immediately after tea?
See, probably I will set more attacking fields for Dom Sibley. I would actually invite him to play those attacking shots because he's very happy defending, and he can actually defend throughout the next session, coming up session as well. And India needs to take wickets. So as I just mentioned it to you once, Shabaz Nadeem is probably bowling. You got to have attacking fields, probably a silly point or a short leg slip, or probably a gully and not a silly point, and invite him to drive some more balls on the offside and probably try and toss it up, because that is something which is a little unnatural to him. But Joe Root, obviously, you got to bowl tight lines and probably start off with Jasprit Bumrah or Ishant Sharma, not start off with spin from both hands, because they are probably the two bowlers who looked actually most likely to get Joe Root out. Obviously, he's looked really settled, but then Jasprit Bumrah or Ishant Sharma from one end, and then probably some tight lines from the other. And against Dom Sibley, have attacking fields. Let him go over the top. I'm happy doing that.
Yeah, Ishant seems to be making things happen, Belly.
Absolutely, yeah. I thought there was some nice swing when those guys came on to bowl as well. I think it was a really good battle. I think straight after lunch, I think England's big thing now, they'll be sat in that dressing room now going, let's win the next hour. Let's win the next hour. India are going to come out. We know they're going to be fighting. They'll give everything they've got. If we calm that down, if we can make that and get into that last hour of the day, like I said, this is a huge session for England. Coming into this series, a lot of question marks about can they score enough runs? And this would be a great platform, and I think they'd go away from today really happy if they win this session.
Actually, this is a very big session in the context of the entire series as well. You might just look at from this test match point of view. If actually England can go wicketless in this session, that will put them in great position to actually get to 400. Even if they end up getting 70 in the next session, they're 210, 220 for 2 coming tomorrow to bat. India will be very disappointed, because in our conditions, I know India lost the toss, but this session probably will set the entire series, not only this test match.
All right, then let's see how both teams respond to what was England's session on in the second session of play on day one. Big thank you to Gautam Gambhir and Ian Bell. Get their thoughts at the end of play. Do send in your questions for our panel with the hashtag AskMatchday if you're watching on Twitter. Otherwise, you can join in the comments and interactions. We'll take as many as we can on our Stumps show on ESPN Weekend for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. We'll see you at Stumps. Watch out to see if England can secure the advantage they've got in this session and make it their day.